Hey, this is Matt once again. What about the end of the video? No paid request, this time for Anthony. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, topics, reactions, commentaries, reviews, re-reviews, what have you, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. And this is for the Meteor Man, which I guess most have labeled the first black superhero movie. Now, granted, I would rather watch this than Black Panther because that one I find much more boring. This one, I appreciate the message it was trying to deal with. I appreciate the cast where you got people like Robert Townsend starring, writing, directing it, who made a scene in Hollywood with Hollywood Shuffle, which dealt with stereotypes of African Americans in movies, at least at that time. You also have Robert Guillaume. You have, which I remember from Jean-Claude Van Damme's Death Warrant, and he was in quite a few films throughout the years. You have James Earl Jones. You got Eddie Griffin. You got bands like Naughty by Nature and Cypress Hill. Luther Vandross is even in it. Yes, Bill Cosby as well is in it. Frank Gorshin, who played the Riddler on the Adam West Batman TV show, he's in it. And it's one of those things where I appreciate bits of this movie, but there's also bits that I go, what the is that? What the fuck? What? You got effects by ILM, some more special than others. I think the movie does work well with this cast. I mean, you even got a young Don Cheadle as one of the Dane henchmen, as well as Tiny Lister Jr. Rest in peace to Zeus. Rest in peace to Debo from Friday. But Tiny Lister's in this. Now, pretty much the story is that Robert Townsend, he is a mild-mannered school teacher. His buddy's played by Eddie Griffin. His father's played by Robert Guillaume. Bill Cosby plays this homeless guy who doesn't speak at all. He's mute. You see him pass by from time to time. James Earl Jones is a neighbor who has all these wigs, so he keeps having these different hairdos. At one point has a hairdo that looks like Kid and Play, or one is a hairdo with the side is cut off like that. Very 90s type of hairdos for these wigs. And the neighborhood is at times attacked by crime. And especially this Dane, I want to get the name of the Dane, the Golden Lords. I almost said Golden Nuggets, but that's a sports team. The Golden Lords. They look like an army of Simon Phoenixes. With the hair, like they have Simon Phoenix's hair, and all of them have it. So it's an army of Simon Phoenixes. And the lead bad guy has a slinky, which anytime I see a slinky, I always think of Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. They also have a pet tiger, but the pet tiger doesn't really do anything, so the pet tiger's just there for, I guess, a visual gag. And you even have like little kids as part of the gang, and that's some of the fun visual gag humor is that at one point the gangs are talking, and the kids come in with their lunch pails, and they're like 3 years old, but each lunch pail has money in it. So it's a movie that I think it tries to do a bit too much on its plate, and I think that's why it wasn't it wasn't successful when it came out. And while I do like the film overall, I do think its heart is in its right place. It tried to do too much because it tried to be a parody of superhero films, but also tried to be a genuine superhero film, but also tried to be a very good-natured message about the community standing up for themselves, taking action on their own to take care of their neighborhood. And on one hand, that meshing of it makes it its more unique nature, so it doesn't feel as it feels a bit more fresh than maybe other movies that attempted stuff like this. But at the same time, I think if it picked a certain lane, maybe the tone would have been a bit more consistent. Because I do think that's one of the problems with the film. There's a bit of an inconsistent tone. Because on one end, you have James Earl Jones having these weird haircuts, the wigs, and you have little kids with lunch pails of money lined up, and your hero can hear and talk to a dog. So if your lead guy goes woof, 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 woof. But on the flip side, this poor old woman got the crap beat out of her, put into an ambulance, and James Earl Jones is trying to give a sincere performance, crying, where Robert Townsend's like, this will never happen again. Or when the meteor comes and hits Robert Townsend and there's an explosion, it cuts to like a really graphic. The meteor's like going right into Robert Townsend's chest. It's kind of a cool effect, I will say. It's a pretty cool effect, but it's like diving into his like a, well, as some people described it, like a David Cronenberg type of thing. And I agree with them. Like, it's just going, it's like, Jesus Christ. And that's what I mean. Like, it's trying to. I appreciate its ambition, though. On the flip side, I do appreciate the ambition it was trying to do. And it does have a bit of a charm with his good intentions of a guy wanting to fix his neighborhood. Like, it's interesting to see these actors play different type of roles. Like, I've never seen James Earl Jones play a role that seems like it would be fit for a guy in his 20s. With the way he's dressed, and he's actually trying to rap at one point. But it was James Earl Jones. And that's where I'm like, I don't know if I find it just endearing that James Earl Jones is taking a leap of faith and doing something different, or if I actually genuinely find it funny. Kind of in between that. And then after this accident, he gets the powers, and I guess they were making fun of the Superman motif, where Superman just seemed like he had all these powers. So does Meteor Man. So not only is he super strong, not only can he fly, not only is he invulnerable to bullets, he has heat vision, but he can also talk to dogs. He can also pick up a book and know everything in it for 30 seconds, but only 30 seconds. Why is 30 seconds? It never goes into why it's only 30 seconds, but it's only 30 seconds because it's part of the gag. Because it's used later on where he's trying to fight, he picks up a book, it is Bruce Lee's. There's Robert Townsend trying to do his woo, your Bruce Lee impression. Or he puts up a book and it's runway model dancing and throws it to the bad guy who has the powers now. So they're both doing these runway models. If you move it, if you groove it. Which I will admit that got me a bit of a chuckle, as that was his intention. That's the thing. It's a movie that it's kind of it's spoofing, but it's trying to be sincere, but it's spoofing. But it's like these two things kind of going back and forth with each other, fighting each other. It doesn't just want to be a spoof. It doesn't want to be genuine. So that's where it gets this kind of topsy-turvy nature that, like I said, on one end is ambitious and makes it a sincerity to be different. But on the flip side, I do see why some people be like, I don't know how to feel about this. It's like, and it just a bit off kilter, I guess, best way to put it. And I do wish this was rated R. I do. I wish this was rated R and they went all for broke on that rating. To be a, I think that would have been much more crazier, maybe even funnier. But you just see, but I guess because they want to be sort of a Superman type of sincere tone, that's why they kept it PG. I think at one point it was going to be PG-13 because of stuff like the meteor just going slowly into the Robert Townsend, but they fought it off, and I believe it's PG. Like I said, I get the idea, but at the same time, like when he does the X-ray vision, he sees through X-ray, but it's people with their clothes on, of course, and you can't be any more. How do I put it? Like for comedy, I kind of wish they did more like into Amazon Women on the Moon, which is R-rated, like that type of pushing the parody aspects. And I mean, parodies can be fun if it's a lower rating. Like National Lampoon's Little Weapon 1, I think that's PG-13. I thought that was rather funny. Hot Shots Part 2 as well. But I just think in this aspect, if it was pushed it was rated R, I think maybe it could have been even funnier. I think because of the rating and the sincerity, they kind of sadly tarnished some of the. I think there's more potential for laughs because of trying to stick with the sincerity of a superhero movie. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like you could almost tell that there's more of a either wittier or crazier superhero parody within this idea. But then, well, we can't do it because we want a PG rating because of this, and that. But I mean, on the flip side, it's potential to have kids go see the film and enjoy it and see a superhero movie. That's why it's kind of like I'm kind of in between with the film. Overall, I would say I liked it and it had a charm to it. Did every single thing work? No. Like Eddie Griffin, depending on each role, sometimes I could deal with him more compared to other movies. He was just kind of there as the sidekick. I wouldn't say I could think of many humongous laughs I got out of his character, though. Probably the big scenes when he pretends to be Meteor Man at this ball, this signing to try to get some girls, and then the real Meteor Man, Robert Townsend, has to zap the things on these guns so that they don't fire and so that he could save Eddie Griffin. I'm trying to think, like, I would say, I guess, laughs I got out of it. It was like to see Tiny Lister in there and trying to punch Meteor Man, but he keeps breaking his hand. So at one point he breaks his one hand. He tries again, he breaks his other hand. It was interesting to see Don Cheadle in a younger role with a Simon Phoenix haircut and hair dye. But that's what I mean. Like you have one instance where, like I said, I think it was Mrs. Walker gets hospitalized, and then it quickly turns to this very goofy montage of all these really horrible looking costumes, until ultimately get the Meteor Man that's on the cover there. And I think Robert Townsend does fine enough as the lead. I have no issues with Robert Townsend. I buy him as a guy that he just wants to do his job well, and he's a substitute teacher. He really does care about the environment, the neighborhood. He works well with the other actors. The effects by ILM, like sometimes, like the meteor bit when it goes into his body, I thought that looked pretty good. The opening, I gotta be honest, the opening with the meteor kind of remind me of Hercules with Lou Ferrigno. Because like the stars are like there's red and blue, and I'm like, am I going to see Hercules like throw a damn bear in the sky now? This would be like the sky kind of looked. It didn't look ILM. It looked kind of again Lufrin or Hercules type. That's why even the effects sometimes are wishy washy. Like some of the flying scenes are a bit iffy. I'm like, why is it that some of the Superman movies from back then, the flying scenes look a bit better than this film in '93 by ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, working on it. So I think some of the flying scenes are a bit dodgy. On the flip side, some of the physical effects, like they tipped a van, you see the whole van move. Obviously, they set a hydraulic to move it. There's a point where a vehicle is being moved because it got pushed, and then Robert Townsend's character has to move out of the way. Like, those scenes are pretty good. Like, there's a bit where he's going very fast, hitting people. And to be honest, they looked as good as the Flash TV show in 1990, but I give more credit to the Flash TV show because that's a TV show. You know, they had a TV budget. And I would say that looks as good as the bit in this movie. That's what I mean. It's like sometimes the effects are not the kind of like this. Sometimes they're pretty good, and sometimes they're a bit iffy. So that was kind of like the tone of the movie. And like I said, with the powers, they just come out of his ass, and again, that's part of the dad. I wish they kind of said that out of the blue. Like maybe they had a montage of, can you do this? Can you do this? And oh, I guess you can't do that. Like make a joke about it. Like have a certain, like Ada Griffin could make a joke about that. Have a dialogue about that. I think that could have been even funnier. Because there's literally a bit where Meteor Man takes a whole field, plants these crops, and makes it rain, and creates these big, like a huge garden in the ghetto with tomatoes as big as Roseanne Barr. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, it really is like he could do whatever he wants until the movie, it doesn't do whatever he wants. And the weakness that he just runs out of power, I did it, but at the same time I went, I don't know. And I still wasn't sure, does he run out of power for good? Or does it just take time to recharge? It seemed like, okay, it takes time to recharge. But I don't know. Even the bit at the end where, okay, he's fine with no powers, and he's going back and forth fighting the bad guy, and the main bad guy was there. I kind of wish either Don Cheadle or someone else was the main bad guy. Because the main bad guy, he was, oh, Sinbad, I almost forgot Sinbad was in it, because he really offered nothing. He's in like 2 scenes. He really didn't add anything to the plot, to the story. He wasn't really that funny, and I like Sinbad. Liked him in Jingle All the Way, but he's kind of there to just wear this outfit. And then in the mall, it's like, wow, this mall is great. Stay chillin'. And leaves. And you never see him again. He never becomes part of the story. I mean, kind of just a pointless cameo from Sinbad. But I mean, like I said, the intention of when Robert Townsend goes in and goes, you know, cops aren't perfect. But what about you guys? How can you complain when you do nothing? Which is a valid point. And then he's fighting with no powers. And then James Earl Jones throwing his records. All the people throw stuff. And I think that would have worked a bit better if, even with the guys with guns, the people would throw stuff and get the. It's hampered a bit by having Bill Cosby come in, who just happens to have these powers as well. And I wish in retrospect they would just not have Bill Cosby's character in it at all. Obviously at the time they got Bill Cosby because Bill Cosby is Bill Cosby. The Cosby Show. And Robert Townsend, of course, worked with Bill Cosby. In fact, he was, what was that? There was going to be like a stand-up film Bill Cosby was in, which will probably never get released. That was like the last thing Robert Townsend directed. If you look it up on his IMDb and stuff. And just his character, I mean, he's a mute. Even though he found piece of the meteor and he got these powers, he doesn't do anything to, like, he's a homeless guy, but he doesn't really do anything to fix his, you know, he finds no way to become not, I don't know, homeless. He just sits there looking at people, which, based on what we know now about Bill Cosby, is creepy in retrospect, where he's watching people and undressing them with his eyes because he's got X-ray vision, or he's just like moving a cup towards him. I'm Bill Cosby. I'm going to do to you a little something for you to drink. And when you do a little bit of sleep, we're going to have some fun with some jello pudding. I know that was the worst Bill Cosby impersonation ever. I don't do Bill Cosby. Well, I don't do Bill Cosby, and I don't do Bill Cosby impersonations. So, I want to talk to you about the jello pudding. What's in it? I know. But it's like, okay, he gets these powers, but he does nothing to help him stay out of being homeless. He's just there to either twirl his fingers and take all the guns away from the bad guys. I like that kind of, that hurts a little bit of the power. I guess you just say he's part of the neighborhood, so he stands up, but thankfully he has powers. So that kind of defeats the fact of, even if you don't have powers, you just stand up for your neighborhood. But it's defeated a bit because you have a guy that uses the powers that... Yeah, as long as you have a guy that uses the powers and twirl his finger to take all the guns away, then you can stand up for your neighborhood. I think if it was done... I mean, funny enough, I thought that was done a bit better in Club Paradise, where Robin Williams and his buddy are running, and then the people just come in and Peter O'Toole is leading them along. Yaman, 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 Yaman. So I just wish Bill Cosby wasn't involved. I wish his whole character... I mean, he's there also to heal a dog that's been hurt. I mean, hell, you could have had it where the neighborhood comes in and doing this and that, and maybe James Earl Jones finds a piece, he gets it, and then he heals the dog. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff you could have done with that. Like, after the neighborhood stands up for in this battle. And I thought also there's some scenes that just ended a bit too quickly. Like, you have this bit with the cops and gang members shooting, and they're shooting, and the bullets are bouncing off of Robert Townsend. It's like, just stop. Put your guns down. Put your guns down. And immediately they put their guns down. And I'm like, number one, no. People would be like, hey, Meteor Man, suck my meteor dick, I'm gonna fuck you. I'm gonna fuck your homes. I'm gonna fuck your girlfriend. I'm gonna fuck your meteor bitch. That's where I just don't buy the scene. I'm like, no, that wouldn't happen. Which is stupid to say in a superhero movie. It's a superhero film. But it's like, nah, I don't buy that. I don't buy... But that's leading up to the gang members helping them at the end as well. And that's it kind of has like two endings. Because you have the ending where he defeats... He does his powers back. He defeats the bad guy and the other Simon Phoenixes to roll him up. And then Frank Gorshin comes in with his gang. And then the other gangs come and put the guns on them. And it's like... It's almost like we had two endings. Let's put them back to back. Also, I thought the ending was a bit abrupt. Like, Frank Gorshin and them leave. People kind of talking. And Robert Townsend kind of looking to the side. And it ends. Freeze frame. I'm like, so what's going to happen afterward? I'm assuming, is he going to continue to be Meteor Man? Do the powers ultimately disappear? Like, no final bits between him and Eddie Griffin? Or is he going to try to be a broader scope now that the neighborhood is done? Is he going to try to take care of the city? Is he going to try to take care of the country? Is he going to try to take care of other stuff? Like, you don't know, and people just say, well, that doesn't matter. But I mean, it just felt like a very abrupt ending. I remember reading somewhere that at one point there was going to be an ending where there was another meteor, and Eddie Griffin wanted to go there, and Robert Townsend obliges, and Eddie Griffin's like, oh, maybe I could be your sidekick, and maybe I could have this name or this name, and at least that would have been a bit less of an abrupt ending, and okay, this is where we're going towards for these characters. But the movie kind of just stops and goes. And I thought that was a bit weird. So yeah, there are nitpicks and other problems I do have with the film. But in the positives, I think Robert Townsend does good as the lead. I think there's enough sincere, good-natured quality to it. There was the right meaning behind it. I appreciate a couple bits of the action scenes when it's done more practically. I appreciate a good chunk of the cast. I do like James Earl Jones' line, if I want a hero, I'll rent Rambo. I do like that. I appreciate some of his off-kilter quality. I always keep thinking about the little, like, 4-year-old Simon Phoenixes coming up with their lunch pails and then the money, money, money. Like, that's a pretty fun visual gag. I just wish that either it went full force into playing up the parody aspect to make it funnier, to not be upheld by its PG rating, and that way they could pull less punches. Just like the music is very much a superhero movie. Like, very much the score is very much a score that you almost hear, like, for Turbo Man, Jingle All the Way, like do 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 do. Very much a superhero score, but at the same time, I would try to go like a generic superhero score, but it's trying for that, I guess, Superman quality, although nowhere near as good as John Williams' Superman score. But it's trying for that superhero quality. But it just sounded a bit generic. Not bad. It didn't sound bad. It just sounded, generic. Kind of like a superhero Saturday morning TV show or something. Like, I can't think of any. Oh, the Meteor Man theme. I know this got a comic book, which I've never read, by Marvel. Like, that's how much they thought this would be a big hit. Marvel got, like, I don't know, 6 issues of a comic. So, I can see how people who grew up with this enjoyed it. I see merits in enjoying it. There are some, when I say off-kilter fun moments, like when he's in the crack house and he blows it, and then later on the bad guys check on him and everyone's like laughing because they're all on crack. Oh, the apartment's like, it's a bunch of half-naked people laughing because they're on crack. Should I be laughing at this? And that's a PG movie. Crack cocaine, whatever it was. I'm like, again, this is a PG film. It was fun to watch again. It's not fun where we watch more. It's nowhere near up to Blade 2, which to me are awesome. But I would rather watch this than Blade Trinity. I'd rather watch this than. At least this has a bit more heart to it than a lot of like the recent Marvel films, or even some of the Zack Snyder DC films. This has a bit more heart to it. Like I said, I would rather watch this than Black Panther, because I could appreciate and get what Robert Townsend was going for. I just don't think he was 100% successful on it, but I appreciate a bit of his ambition. So maybe I appreciate it more than I liked it, although I do like it, but I think maybe with a sequel, 2 years later, he's like, okay, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, this is where we could go with it. I don't know, so did not mind the film, although I do have issues with it. So with that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.